Welcome to Brain Talk, a program for non-scientists. My guest today is retired business executive Bob Huzinec, husband and caregiver of Anne Huzinec, who was diagnosed in 2017 with a language subtype of frontotemporal dementia known as progressive non-fluent aphasia agrammatic. Anne was 57 years old. As a male caregiver, Bob has worn many hats over the past several years. In lieu of a memoir, he decided to write a how-to manual for caregivers to guide their journey. I am really excited to be able to hear about that today and grateful that he has graciously allowed me to share a link to it at the end of this podcast. So, Bob, I met Anne and you on June 28th, 2017. By that time, she had undergone a brain MRI study in April of 2017 that was within normal limits. She had also been seen by a neurologist at Weill Cornell, who considered her to be suffering from depression. Her family physician, Daniel Slagle, wasn't completely satisfied with that, so he referred her on to me. Can you describe how you saw Anne's condition at that point? Did you think depression explained the changes that you saw?
Well, as you said, Anne was diagnosed in 2017. First diagnosis we didn't really go for, so we went back for a second diagnosis, and that was the first one, as you was in Weill Cornell. The second one was done at Penn State. I would always recommend getting a second opinion to set your mind at ease. The depression, I don't think it was really depression. It was something that Anne was feeling, and her being a nurse and RN while she was working was being caught in her mind that there was something wrong. Even today, Anne knows there's something wrong, but her aphasia will not let her voice say what she's trying to say. She does, though, point to her head, and while trying to say something, will constantly tap the side of her head. Here, the sad part is Anne understands the questions and coming in, but can't express her answers, and you can see how frustrating that can be. I think Anne knew that, as I said, Anne knew there was something wrong as she worked remotely on the computer. And I learned later was having trouble with her job. She decided to retire in 2014 or 15. In regards to her change in affecting her language, it was a gradual occurrence. But as Dr. Flattery said, it began to show more signs as the years progressed. When told what Anne had, I had no idea what aphasia or FTD were. This is where the knowledge base of the selfish disease started. I remember going to industry events late 2017, 18, and 19, where it was obvious to all those we spent time with that there was a problem. My belief is that the more people who know of the situation, the better it'll be for all. After everyone knows the situation, Anne and I felt as if it was old times when we went to these events. We felt very comfortable, as did the people we were with. At our daughter's wedding in 2019, you can see there was a big change as there were less understanding and more guidance needed. But here again, everyone knew the situation, and it was a very memorable, happy day. I don't know where to go from here, Dr. Flaherty. What's your next question?
When I met Anne, her speech was still technically fluent, while her initiative, motivation, and drive were low, such that she only spoke in response to questions or comments being directed toward her. She did report a significant degree of depression and very low energy reserves. She was prescribed to Zoloft and I recommended she transition to Wellbutrin to eliminate any potential side effects of drowsiness, as well as counseling with Judith Kennedy of Samaritan Counseling Services. Our plan was for medication change and 6 months of psychotherapy, followed by a formal neuropsychological assessment to establish a baseline of her cognitive capacities once her depression had stabilized. When you both returned on December 13th, 2017, her mood was indeed improved. She considered her 6 months of therapeutic intervention to have been helpful. She was preparing more meals more regularly. She was now exercising routinely, and she seemed much happier. I began to administer a formal assessment at that time, but she had such significant difficulty with a complex drawing task and a word access task that involved letter fluency that I discontinued the testing. Her difficulty with the drawing task was not with fine motor movements, it was with visual organization. When it came to the letter fluency task, she was not able to provide any responses at all to a list of words that begins with a certain letter. She also seemed to be having some degree of difficulty understanding what I was saying when my comments were not completely concrete. Can you describe the changes you had been noticing prior to 2017 that affected her language? Did it surprise you to be told that she had signs of progressive non-fluent aphasia and that it was advanced enough that she was having difficulty understanding what was being said to her?
As I said, it was something that she saw first, and she knew there was something wrong. And I think that's where the depression came from, because she couldn't do the work she loved to do, which was basically with high risk pregnancies and so on. So she couldn't keep the focus on what she was doing, so she left her position. And after she left her position, it was very difficult for her to get motivated, because she was sitting around the house. I was working, and she was really home alone with no conversation with anybody but herself, watching TV, doing housework, preparing dinners and so on. I think as time progressed, and we had seen Dr. Kennedy, and we went through all the MRIs, the scans, name all the things that we went through. It became apparent to me, and I think also to her in a different way, that there was something very, very wrong here. And as you said, when we met with you and we started working with the pictures and the word, trying to look at what's an elephant, what's a giraffe, what's this, and you couldn't figure out what was there. It became very concerning to me, and that's when we started the in-depth work on with you and the neurologist at the Hershey Med Center, and also in Weill Cornell in Manhattan, when they got all the information from Anne's medical records.
My recommendation was for the pursuit of a physiological brain scan. That is, the kind of scan that can show brain activity. This was to assist with determining her actual diagnosis. The findings from that scan looked like a combination of depression and dementia. The neuropsychological assessment that I completed in the months following confirmed the diagnosis of progressive non-fluent aphasia, agrammatic. Essentially, whether or not an individual maintains their grammatical ability while they're becoming non-fluent determines whether their condition is considered Alzheimer's disease or frontotemporal dementia. Did you find that having a diagnosis contributed to Anne's care? Did it make it easier to communicate with other children? What was happening to their mother? How about communicating information to other people in your circle and making efforts to build and maintain your own support system?
Well, the diagnosis was important in establishing Anne's care. We started going together to the caregivers meetings, which which you conduct, um, where we learned a lot from those who had currently going through the journey with FTD and aphasia. But without the diagnosis, we would have been lost, confused, and most probably would have been very detrimental to the family. Communicating with our children after the diagnosis was initially difficult, as it did not want to accept what was happening. And they were worried that she would forget, not recognize them or the grandchildren. Over time, one of our daughters, who was a nurse, uh, did a deep dive into the disease and was able to bring us all together to talk. They all accepted that mom has had it for been better when we all get together and FaceTime and talk on the phone. So as whether we're all together, she's happy. Whether we're FaceTiming, which has got a little bit difficult now, because for her to focus on the phone is hard. She loves the grandchildren. When she sees them, the smile comes there. So she knows who they are. But as stated, it's difficult for all family members to accept this disease. And as you know little about it when it's first diagnosed. Everyone will have questions and need to learn. Uh, and they're always questioning: Are you doing the right thing and doing what is necessary? And it's important to let everyone know that she has a very good medical team with her, working with her. She's constantly meeting her schedules. She's doing what she's supposed to do, and you can't do anything more than you possibly can. If you're following all the directions, all the going to all your appointments, taking all your medications, uh, having a social life, uh, you can't do anything more. Our support system has been unbelievable between the caregivers group, friends, co-workers. There's never a time when we think we're alone with this disease. People call us. We see them daily on our routine afternoon socialization trips. Moran talks to everyone. Talking is a different means than um, they all know the situation, and they're more than happy to speak with her on that. And she has a good time. She smiles when she talks to them. Nobody wants to talk to me all day long, so it's good to get her out and have other people have conversation and socialize. If I'm having a down day and I need to talk to someone, there are many people I can talk to for 5 or 10 minutes. We never discuss my day. We just talk about football, sports, food, etc. I thank God I have good friends. Well, thank God we both have good friends. Um,
Please describe what in particular about your experiences inspires you to generate a caregiver manual. What advice would you have for caregivers at this stage when their loved one is more advanced?
this is a will be a lengthy part here, but our journey can only be described as interesting, learning, prayerful, and sad. As I say in my manual, it's important that you listen to your spouse as you have become their voice, especially with aphasia. Trust is very important. You must abide by their respects, even when it bothers you or others, because when they did have a voice, they asked you, "Here's where we want to do what we want to do, and here's what I believe." And now that voice is gone, but you know what they want. As I mentioned earlier, routine is very important, as well as socialization, as you had just mentioned. The more people that know about the condition, the better it is for the individual with FTD and aphasia and the caregiver. A little bit of music, dance, humor make Anne's day go much better, and she is in a much better mood than sitting doing nothing. You know, you don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. We used to travel extensively, but unfortunately, our last trip was in 2019 to our favorite location where we took pictures and which now hang all over the house. to allow Anne to see and remember the places and the trips we did. Anne points to the pictures, smiles, and says, "Good." So I know it's going in there. I put books together from all of our trips, kids, grandkids, along with the wedding album, allowing Ann to go through them and point to the pictures, smile, and say things which I can only deem as being happy. It's very important to do that because it brings back memories and also keeps her mind going. Drawing. Well, you had mentioned she was drawing. What I also did was drawing also allowed Anne to let her thoughts out. Well, she no longer draws, unfortunately. We have about a dozen pictures she drew and allowed her to let her thoughts out. I marked what the drawings were and the date that they were done in the bottom corner. It's something that family comes over when they come over, they look at and they say, interesting. And Anne goes and she points and does all that. So she remembers that too. Traveling now, as I mentioned, is at a minimum. Uh, as Anne gets very agitated in the car. Early on, she tried to get out of the car while we were moving on the highway. We took care of that. Now Anne sits in the back seat, which has child locks on the door. We have increased our trip to 1 hour now to visit our daughter and grandchildren with only slight agitation. Our next trial trip will be 3 hours to see our son and his girlfriend Carly in Pittsburgh. Even if it takes 2 days or several hours, many stops, that'll be fine thing just to get there. Again, it's important to follow the cue from your loved one. If Anne wants to leave or stop doing something, we do it. Follow your loved one's wishes and requests and go with the flow. This will make everyone's life less stressful. I also look up. I also look up to see if there's any new treatments or assistance programs, uh, etc., which are being offered or conducted. And we did find a few, but unfortunately, they are located in Massachusetts or way outside in various other states far from here. This I do by keeping up with FTD through the FTD Association. They're a wealth of information and help. Our daughter is greatly involved with the AFTD and also sends us information that she sees. My last comments, and this is get into the beginning of the manual I wrote, is the title of it is Unconditional Love, Forgotten Memories, Things Unseen, Enjoy the Moment, a caregiver's guide to FTD and dementia to hope. That's I started that because I needed something for me to do. And not only that, but I also thought it was important to write down what I'm doing so my kids could look and say maybe they help them. But then I thought maybe expand that to a larger population of people who are in the same boat as me and Ann and need some guidance. It's not a everything answered cookie cut process book. It gives you directions, suggestions, and also tells you to look further into some things. In the guide, I covered much of what we have gone through with the advice on what might be done for sanity and for protection and for love. The titles of the chapters are give you a glimpse of what is in the guide and what to follow. And I'm a very blunt person, so I wrote this from the heart and for truth, not to be loved by anybody else. The first chapter is support, things you need to do, transparency and trust. The second chapter, as I mentioned earlier, dancing and music and TV and picture albums, drawing, art, games, see everything through their eyes. That's a very interesting chapter. And exercise. Chapter 3 is listen, patience, and fear of the unknown. And chapter 4,
Hmm.
pardon my French, it's and then self pity is not an option. Life's a bitch, but what you do with it, it matters. And and it really brings across the whole spectrum of the disease of aphasia, the benefits of attorneys, the benefits of financial advisors, the benefits of doctors, socialization, and everything that's important to, as I said, to keep and bring sanity into a life of confusion. I really have nothing much more to say. That's it in a nutshell, and I just hope it helps other people because people need to know about this disease more and help others with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking the time to speak about your journey as a caregiver of your spouse, Anne. It is inspiring to see how you have managed to provide her with such an outstanding quality of life, despite her language difficulties. I think your caregiver guide will be of benefit to many families, both now and in the future. Enjoy the rest of your summer.
That sounds fine to me. And I'd like to say one more thing. It's for the caregiver. It's important that you spend time for yourself. You need me time. I'm retired now. I'm at home more. I still stay involved with the organizations that I worked with when I was working. Keeps my mind going. It's also I promised our children in February that I would go out and try to find a, a a person to come in and sit with Ann and do things with her other than me, so that I can get out. At first, I thought it was, I was giving up, was not doing the right thing to help her. But then everybody was telling me, if you're not here, you can't take care of her. So I got it, and I've started the process. It takes a little bit of time, but we're at the last phase of the process now, where I've filled out forms, contacted the various departments for assistance and guidance, and the last phase of this is being done now. We had the interviews some yesterday, and we're looking at about a 30-day process now to get an answer for people coming in and sitting with Ann, so I can go out and do things just to clear my mind and relax. And again, you're not being selfish, you're not being mean, you're not giving up. You're just being helpful in the long run to both of you.